Good evening. In a socially distanced world, Design United is an optimistic digital platform for collaborative design and connection, showcasing emerging talent and a curated selection of designers from our own region. We welcome you to Design United's fourth design conversation in a new series of weekly conversations with emerging designers, unique regional practices, and to be a part of their inspiring design journeys. I'm Varna Shashidhar, founder principal of a regional landscape practice, BSLA, based in Bengaluru. I'm supported by ClayWorks Spaces and our Design United team in this endeavor. ClayWorks creates flexible, tech-driven, and service-oriented spaces that focus on productivity and sustainability. I would like to welcome today our presenting designers, Else Boss and Sagar Chitrakar from Studio Neba, Nepal, and Akarsh Shamanur from Be Polite, India. To introduce Studio Neba and Be Polite, I'd like to say Studio Neba comprises of Sagar Chitrakar and Else Bose, partners in both business and life. Sagar Chitrakar's specialty is architecture and design, and Else Bose has specialized in interior, product, and fashion design. They are the founders of Studio Neba that grew from their mutual passion for architecture, design, and fashion. Honoring natural elements and local crafts is the emphasis of their studio. Their studio also emphasizes on natural materials, local crafts, and the quality of the product. Neba's work connects the imaginative with the practical, resulting in a timeless, warm, and an honest aesthetic. This multidisciplinary studio works in the tropics of Bali as well as in the Himalayan foothills of Nepal. Our second designer today is the initiative Be Polite, Akarsh Shamanur and his initiative Be Polite. Akarsh is an architect and an urban designer with a passion for sustainable solution and inclusive urban development. He is from Karnataka. He founded Be Polite in the year 2017. Through Be Polite, Akarsh has been providing solar-powered lights to street vendors in underserved communities across several Indian cities with the support of patrons. They have been able to reimagine the way India celebrates its festivals in a smoke-free and eco-friendly manner. Their campaign has aligned itself with the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. Thank you very much, Akarsh and Studio Neba, for joining us today. We will be starting with Be Polite, and Akarsh Shamanur will be our very first speaker, followed by Studio Neba. Welcome to all, and please stay for this interesting design journey. Please feel free to type in audience questions, which will be answered in the discussion that will follow. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Akarsh Shamanur, and welcome to this design conversation, the fourth series. Firstly, I would like to take this opportunity to thank Varna Shashidhar from VSLA, ClayWorks, and the entire team that has been able to put this together for today. So I'm going to talk about this initiative called Be Polite, which started 3 years ago. And I'm going to give you a little background about what the name, how I arrived at the name called Be Polite. So I started my journey with Avi College of Architecture, and after finishing my bachelor's in architecture, I went to the Netherlands to pursue my master's, specifically in urban management and urban development. And just after the course, I also got an opportunity to work with a clean tech consultancy called Metabolic, which was completely looking at how we can reimagine the way our cities are more sustainable and more inclusive. And that's where I thought, okay, a lot of the first world countries are really looking at transitioning towards a more greener future. But back home in India, I realized that there's so many more people, especially in the informal sector, specifically talking about street vendors, who lack access to basic infrastructure such as lighting or cold storage or even shade or even something as simple as a toilet. And that's where my journey began. And I started to explore, okay, started looking at how can we really improve access to basic infrastructure. And the entry point was a light. And that light was essentially a portable light. And the short form of that became polite. And I said, why don't we start being polite, or like, let's be polite to a street vendor, specifically during Diwali, because Diwali is the festival of lights in here in India. And I thought, why not gift a solar powered light to a street vendor? So that's how the initiative Be Polite came into being, because currently the majority of citizens perceive street vendors to be a nuisance. They think, oh, they're like dirty and they come and mess up the place. So the current perception is very negative. So I thought, okay, why not try and transform that into a slightly positive one? And that's where Be Polite fits in. And the fundamental thought behind the entire initiative is Mahatma Gandhi's talisman, where he essentially says that any initiative or any project that you work on, as long as it helps the person at the bottom of the pyramid, I think we've done a good job. So that's where this thought process has really influenced me in all the work that I do. And somewhere down the line, like many years ago when I was a child, I remember my grandfather, who was a Gandhian, he took me to the market one day, and he just asked me, said, "Listen, Akarsh, what do you want to do when you grow up?" And I was like, "Ajay, I want to become an architect or an engineer, and I want to do this." And I had a lot of dreams back then, and I mean, I still do. But just when I said that, he just patted me on the back of my head and said, "First, look at that street vendor. See if you can do something for him or her, and then you can, start looking at bigger things in life." And somehow this thought really just stuck around. And a couple of years later, like when I started this initiative, I saw it all fall in place. So this initiative mainly looks at, it started off with providing solar powered lights to street vendors who do not have adequate lighting. And what I've been able to achieve by doing this, or the intent of integrating cultural values, sustainable or clean energy, looking at citizen engagement, and engaging with people at the bottom of the pyramid who are like socially deprived or economically deprived. And that's when I put all of these values together, and that's how the initiative Be Polite is structured. And I've also aligned the entire campaign with various like United Nations Development Goals, which are also known as SDGs, specifically 1, 5, 7, 8, 10, 11, 13, 17. So really looking at how can we look at the larger goals and how this initiative can sort of attend or cater to those goals as well. Now, coming specifically to lighting, the product you see on the right over here is Polite, which is essentially a portable light. It's a 5-watt solar panel with a 2Ah lithium-ion battery, and it also has a mobile charging port, like a USB port. And you can also, there's a small little LED tube light as well. So what I did was I initially did a couple of pilot projects where I started looking at, okay, interacting with street vendors to see if lighting does play a crucial role and how it can help increase their income levels as well. Because that was the initial hypothesis that I started off with. Basically, if you have enough light, then technically you should be able to sell for a longer duration of time, hence making more money. But along the pilot project, the most thing that the biggest learning was that customers said that now we are able to trust the street vendor. One, because there's better lighting, and because there is better lighting, we are able to see what they're selling, in a proper way, and we're able to choose what we want. And even other smaller issues like, oh, sometimes they may not give the change back correctly, or there might be hygiene issues. Those kind of things are solved to an extent. And a very interesting learning along the way was when I interacted with this street vendor called Manjula Devi in Jayanagar 9th block. Her child was also there, and this was specifically during her summer holidays. And the kid said, Uncle, when I grow up, we're going to ensure that we will use solar energy in our house. And at that moment, I realized that we've been able to start talking about environmental sustainability at a very young age itself. And also, some of the vendors use the same light for cooking at night in case they don't have electricity at home, or even those people who live in slums or shanty communities, they use this for their children so that they can study as well. And another very interesting outcome, or very important outcome, especially in urban areas, is that of urban safety. So here on the left, if you can see this image, this is of a lady called Banu, who sets up her tea and snack stall very close to Yalanka railway station. And this is a small path that takes you to the other side where the NES bus stop is located. And when I started interacting with Banu, she said that, because I am situated here and I have adequate lighting, a lot of women feel safer to cross onto this side of the railway track and catch a bus from the other side. So just because of a presence of a street vendor and adequate lighting in a very dim lit street or an alleyway, it plays a very crucial role from an urban safety point of view as well. And once we started, just after a year, I realized that several street vendors were not able to, they were having issues with the usage of the product. And that's when we tried to look at a visual instruction manual. And this instruction manual was, we collaborated with a cartoonist in Bangalore called Sridhar Komaravalli. And we came up with the do's and don'ts, which you can see here on the right-hand side. And it's a very straightforward, clear, simple visual instruction manual that talks about how to use the product and how not to, like what are the things you shouldn't be doing. And since this initiative was completely crowdfunded, it becomes very critical to share the data of where the light has been given, and especially how we spend the money that has been contributed by all the patrons. And that's where geotagging made a lot of sense to us. So especially in the entire process, while handing over the light to the street vendor, what we do is we geotag them. So we pick up the location via WhatsApp, and then we put it on a map and then share this map with the donors so they know where the light has been given. And we also asked a lot of like supporters saying, if you know any street vendor in your locality, do send their photograph and WhatsApp their location. And we will, go through our volunteer team, we will go and deliver this light to them. So what started off 3 years ago during Diwali has now grown into a student movement where we've scaled up from Bengaluru, we've gone up to Davanagere, Hubli, Chennai, and even Kolkata, and a few places in Mumbai as well. And especially in Kolkata, we had a very interesting exercise last year, with Techno India University and Y East, where we had roughly about 150 to 170 students who collaborated with us. And me and Naga Karthik from Sauramandala Foundation, what we did was we taught them how to go about crowdfunding as an idea. So we gave them crowdfunding as a tool to understand how they can raise funding online and then provide these lights to street vendors. So we gave them a clear set of guidelines on how to identify a street vendor who is deprived of lighting. And also we gave them the different criteria on how to identify, and also how to identify a service provider, because it is very critical to provide training to a service technician, because what we do is through the campaign, we charge about 10% of the product cost towards servicing and maintenance, which means that the street vendor will be provided 1 year warranty for the product. So anything goes wrong, we make sure that it's serviced for free for 1 year. And also this small deposit amount plays a very critical role in ensuring accountability. As in the first campaign, we realized that, and we also, a lot of patrons suggested that we shouldn't give anything for free. And also ensure that if you're giving it for free, give it to the lady who's running the vending shop or the push cart. And that's when we started focusing specifically on women street vendors. And through time, we also realized that they are the real decision makers in the entire process. I mean, they decide on how much how much stock of each type of vegetable should be purchased, and the husband, in fact, does more of a logistical job in terms of getting the vegetables and procurement and the transport, and all of that part is handled by him. So once we did this initiative, we started looking at what next. I mean, lighting was taken care of. So once lighting was taken care of, we started looking at cold storage, because one of the other requirements or the needs I came about was refrigeration. So I took part in this hackathon at the Indian Institute of Science, along with an NGO called Waste Impact Trust and CFORCE, where we looked at how do we provide micro cold storage solutions to street vendors. And one of the specific food items we looked at preserving in this process was chutney, because majority of the street vendors, like the street food vendors, they prepare the chutney in the afternoon. And by the time we consume it in the evening, there is a very high probability that the chutney would get fermented and the E. coli count would have gone up, which would eventually end up in an upset with a stomach upset for a lot of consumers. So we looked at preserving the chutney, and we piloted a model where we just took a few mini bar fridges and we rented out each fridge to street food vendors at Sanjay Nagar Church Street. And one of the biggest learning was that street vendors were willing to pay for refrigeration as a service. And we started noticing that not only did they start storing chutney in the fridges, but they also started storing cool drinks and chopped vegetables and paneer and butter. So there was a lot of value add that was definitely provided to the street vendors. And as of in terms of the next step, we're looking at setting up a permanent community fridge at Sanjay Nagar Church Street, which will be funded through a CSR fund and also operated specifically by the community who runs the street, like the Church Street over there. So we're looking at training one of them and also looking at tying up with FSSAI so that we can ensure that hygienic food preparation practices are followed, along with also ensuring a zero waste, street food vending zone, where we're looking at maybe providing steel plates with a dishwashing machine. So things are hygienic, and we also ensure that we don't generate a lot of waste from there. So we looked at two energy needs. One was lighting, refrigeration, and then I started looking at, okay, if cold storage is so critical, why not start looking at a complete vending zone where we just provide the basic infrastructure to existing street vendors in market spaces. So this was a proposal we prepared specifically for Davanagere Smart City, along with a firm called Meta City. And we started looking at, okay, can we provide just shade along with solar power and a cold storage unit, and just provide like a hygienic environment for street vendors to sell fruits and vegetables. So this was one project where, we started looking at it step by step. So we started with lighting, cold storage, and now the entire vending zone. So this is possible only through an act called as the Street Vendors Act, which was passed by the Union government in 2014. And it enables street vendors, or it gives them the right to sell vegetables and food and whatever they want in urban areas, and within a framework of the municipality. So we're looking at how we can enable the Street Vendors Act, give them proper ID cards, give them proper training through the FSSI model, and also look at creating these vending zones. As the next step, or in the coming days, we're looking at, from all the learnings that we had through the earlier projects that I showed all of you, as the next step, we're looking at working on an app which can basically aggregate all the street vendors in a city. Because on one hand, we're looking at catering to the municipality's need of ensuring registration of the street vendors, as in onboarding them to give them a legitimate ID and a photograph and a location and what they sell, and eventually taking that database of the street vendors and connecting it with customers. So you sitting at home in the coming days would be able to know that who's the nearest street vendor who has cauliflower, or who's the nearest street vendor who's selling pav bhaji, and you should be able to order it via phone or maybe the app. But that's a step by step and an incremental process that we are looking at. And going forward, this would eventually really reimagine the way street vending and street food is delivered to everyone's doorsteps. So yes, this is the initiative, and these are the photographs of some of the street vendors who've got the lights in the earlier initiative. And this year we will be we are already started planning for Diwali across Indian cities. So if you'd like to collaborate, if you know street vendors in your city, and also see if you would like to anchor a campaign in your city where you can raise funds, hand over the lights with student communities in your cities, and also simply collaborate in any which way that you think you'll be able to add value to this cause of a smoke-free Diwali, where we genuinely look at how we can bring light into the lives of street vendors. So thank you so much. Please do get in touch and follow us on Instagram, Twitter, and also Facebook. And looking forward to interacting with all of you. Please stay safe, and especially during such difficult times, please support your local street vendor and insist and help them in adopting more hygienic practices in the coming days. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for an interesting presentation, Akarsh. We will be now moving on to Studio Neba's presentation.
Thank you, everyone. I hope you can hear us well. I want to thank you guys all for inviting us to have this design conversation, and also for the persons who are now here with us to listen to us, basically. I want to shortly introduce us, which actually you already introduced us very well. Sagar and I met each other in Bali, Indonesia, and he was working there for an architecture studio, and I was having a break. And we actually kind of have a mutual love for interior product, fashion, and we both had such a mutual passion that we decided afterwards to start our own studio.
Yeah, and even the name, the name is a kind of a mixture of the Nepal and Indonesia, and right?
Yeah.
So it's a Neba stands for
Netherlands, Nepal, and Bali.
Yeah, Bali. So it's a platform where we introduced our skill sets, the things that we like, and we try to merge everything and just have it in a place. And it was a story on how Studio Neba was born.
And what is also very nice, because all these places have so much beautiful local crops, and we really wanted to highlight those local crafts. As here you can see on the picture, this is our studio in Nepal, because we also moved out of Bali and we moved to Nepal, and we're here now for almost already a year actually. And this is our studio, which is reside in the Tarragon Museum, which is an architecture museum in Kathmandu. And it's a beautiful, amazing building from the 70s, which actually is still like pretty in a very, very good shape.
Yeah, and it's very nice to be in a space, in a valley. Like, you don't have much places where you find like architecture inspired, but having a space from like 1970s, which is like also well intact. And then it's a museum where you have like artists, like rotating artists, so you can get exposed to different forms of arts, different forms of mediums. So it's like you're working in a museum and like living in a museum actually. So which is like a very interesting space to have in such a kind of dense city in Nepal.
Yeah, and every month they have a new exhibition with either local artists or abroad who exhibit their work, which of course gives us a lot of inspiration.
Right. So
So our philosophy, what is very important to us, that we strive in creating collections and designs who are both benefiting people and the environment. So it remains ethical on both ways, and it we give back to nature. It's not that yeah, that it remains sustainable.
right, so here we want to showcase some of our works that we did in the past, some of the works that we are doing at the moment, and a little bit sneak peek on what we are working in the future.
Yeah, so we're talking a little bit about Playa Palada, which is one of our first projects, which is very minimal and it's very pure, integrated in nature, simplicity in its purest form. And we're talking a little bit about the fashion part, the collection of it, its inspiration, its philosophy, also the surge in creating something more sustainable. We're talking about Terrace, which is in Ubud, Bali. It's a true hidden gem, hidden in the lush jungle. There are no access for cars, which obviously gives some constraints in terms of the construction process. And we talk about Fennoy, which is a beautiful project in Norway, Fennoy, in an amazing landscape. It overlooks the sea and the mountains, and we talk a little bit more about that one. And also a little bit about the present and the future, what we are currently working on, and what is our vision for our next steps.
All right, so as she just mentioned, this is the first project in Playa Palada. So in this project, the limitation and constraint where we had to use the wood as a major structural element, and as well as like all, like you should use wood as much as you can. So since as you know that we have a limitation on the span of the wood that we can use, so the entire structure is somewhat kind of a derived from what the material wood can give us. So as you can see on the right side, so we just had to envision how to build this structure because we were not physically present on site. So we had to give all the drawings and all the visual identities on how to make this structure alive without our presence on the site. And to talk about the location, it's like just 150-meter away from the sea, and it has been kind of separated into the two spaces. For instance, the lower one, which is a living room and a kind of a kitchen, it opens up to the sea in the front and in the back. But on the top one, it has a private bedroom with a beautiful skylight so that you can get a nice breeze all on the day and all on the night as well.
Yeah, and for the interior we use, because we have a lot of more rougher textures, we use a lot of soft tones, so it will create a balance between all the elements as well. And we use a lot of copper elements as well, natural linen fabrics, neutral, very soft colors.
Yeah, so basically, what we wanted to do is like we just wanted to use as much, like locally kind of available material in the site, and at the same time not kind of design something which is very much complex so that the local skills person would not have a knowledge to do it. So it was all like very basic frame structure, and everything was what they're used to it. But we just came with something which would derive a new kind of identity to what a space would be in that very space. So next would be the fashion, which Ilse will take over.
Yeah, so the fashion was basically also a little bit a representation of our journey along the way. So you have the fashion collection one, which is the first one, um, which we started to develop in Indonesia, Bali, where we partnered with a local botanical dyer, and we used for these natural use ketapang leaves, sapan wood, and indigo. And what is very nice with this collection, because I really wanted to create where the soft meets rough. So the more rougher linen textures, we use a lot of heavy linen, and the soft meets the scrap silk. And it's very light, the silk, where the linen is very heavy. So it is a little bit a blend of those. And then we moving on to the next collection. It's also when we're busy with when I was working on this collection, there was also a change in our scenery. We moved from Bali to Nepal. So I basically wanted to incorporate both crafts there. So still the natural dye would be belong to Bali, and I was implementing more things which were also available here in Nepal. And which is very interesting, because you are diving then more into a different type of know-how which is here available. So when we're moving to the next part of the collection, which is one of the things which we started here, is our Kashmir collection. And it has actually translated into the same type of design, because it's where rough meets the soft, because the knitting is very rough. It's a little bit more robust, more bigger as well. So and the softness of cashmere is of course amazing on your skin. So it is a balance of both, and it creates harmony. And yeah, this is actually a part. This collection is really a part of our travels, and also in search of sustainability, with whom we are working with, finding the right fabrics. It's a very interesting process.
All right, so next one is just a brief about a house in Fenway in Norway. So with respect to the first project, where we have not physically been on the site, so then we had to study like what the surrounding of this landscape is, how the sun goes, and all the elements that you would be like, have to be on the site. So the one of the requirement for this site was, since the site belonged to a client which was passed along from one generation to the next, so he wanted to have this strong kind of identity of whatever he's going to build on the site. But at the same time, we didn't want to introduce something which is very visually like, visually minimal, is something which we wanted to do actually, so that whenever it's sitting on the site, it would not be shouting out much. So we introduced a building which is like a very minimal looking from the site, and at the same time, we found out that the location had like a nice stones which are available. So we just fortified the walls with the stones on the outside, which will be also thermally insulated. And it's just simply capped with a roof. It's not a flat roof, but from the side, it looks entirely flat. So yeah, so we just introduced this, which is very like clean and minimal.
And if you see in terms of the interior, the client really wanted to create a balance between Japanese style and Scandinavian style. So you will see minimal without feeling cold. However, the climate there is of course it's a little bit more cold, but inside you feel a certain of warmthness. Um, it is a very nice and clean space. It also is very spacious, because the client wanted to create a certain flow within his spaces, that it is very easy to access. Also, we wanted to create some dynamic in terms of light. So as you can see, there is a little bit of shaft above which is open, especially since we are in Norway, and you might see the northern lights. You see the beautiful stars. There is less light pollution over there because it's less crowded there. So we really wanted to create that you have a stargazer up there. And it also creates a lot of beautiful light play into the space.
All right, so this is like another architecture project in Indonesia. So it's located in a rice field in a place called Ubud. And the interesting part about this was the client's requirement was the client wanted to have his own private residency, and at the same time he wanted to have few villa units that he could rent it out, which means that the flow and the function of the house would be something that there needs to be a privacy, and at the same time a space where everyone can come along and kind of gather and have a mutual space as well.
Especially since the client also not just wanted to have his own private residency, he wants to create a sort of dynamic space where might be retreats are host, because Ubud is one of the most beautiful places to have a retreat. So for example, like cooking workshop retreats, all sort of things like that. So as you can see in the next slide, we have also some difference, diversity into the room. So we have two mezzanine levels on the sides and one bedroom in the middle. And the mezzanine level has the possibility for having two bedrooms, and it has a living space. So you can actually, it's multifunctional. You can change it as per guests. And on the upper part, we have in the middle section, you have a rooftop, which is only for the middle section room. And you see that there has also, we incorporated the trees, the lush greenery, because it really creates the interior and the exterior combining together.
Right, and even in this project, you have to kind of get aware of the kind of the craftsmanship which is available there. So we just wanted to play around with the simple roof structure, and at the same time how to find a new approach to find something which is interesting. So that's how we came along with the void in a simple heap roof, I would say, so that the upper space has its own private space, and we can have a tree on top of that, which would create more kind of greenery and shading at the same time.
And now we want to talk a little bit about the present and the future. So currently we're working on a collection 04, so the fourth collection, which is respected with the local craft and natural materials who are available in Nepal. So we're currently diving deeper into the different fabrics. So we're working now with bamboo and hemp, and we're trying to keep that fabric as natural as possible, leaving them undyed. And alongside, we still have work. We will still work with our silks and linen, where we try on some different natural dyes as well. And we're developing also some new interior pieces locally made here in Nepal. And that is always a very exciting thing, because we're working together with the local carpenters, developing like a little bit more limited pieces, but also something which is a little bit more newer to the market here, which is very interesting as well.
Yeah, so to talk about a few of the project, currently we are this is one of the few projects which we are working on at the moment. So this is a restaurant in a valley. So here we try to introduce few materials from the past and few materials which are not very widely used, or like they've lost the track during the time. So on the floors on the left hand corner, you would see like these are the very local tiles. So, and we introduce a kind of terrazzo with the tiles so that it's blending nicely. And
yeah, and what is very very nice with this space, because it is a restaurant slash coffee shop. So we wanted to create a little bit more harmony in terms of masculinity and femininity. So we have a lot of heavy materials, such as the terrazzo, such as the wood, but we use a lot of dried flowers as well in the interior. So there is a kind of a nuance between those both places, basically. And now I want to share a little bit about the future, about some projects we're currently working on. We're just going to give you a sneak peek on the materials we're using in these projects. For example, we're using the local stones, which are represented there at the site as well, and or nearby, which creates a very nice, interesting dynamic as well. And we use a lot of terrazzo. And on the right side, you see the bricks, the glass bricks. So we're currently working on something here also in Nepal. And Nepal's heritage buildings have the Nepali red bricks. And we really love that. We really like to keep using a little bit of heritage in all the projects. However, we translate this in a more contemporary way. So this is something to stay tuned about. And also we're currently working on some ceramic with some local ceramic makers here in Nepal, even with tiles. And we have also a very interesting project coming up where we are still working on as well, is our own Neba residence, which we want to keep open for collaborating artists. So we can invite people all over the world to find a little bit more solitude and to be creative and to get inspired, but also to have an opportunity to collaborate and to share knowledge and to learn from each other and to share our visions. And well, now I'm at the end of our presentation. I would like to invite every one of you to follow our work and to stay tuned of what we're working on, and a little bit the sneak peek what we just shared with you. And also, if you feel that you would like to collaborate with us, you would like to know more about something, or you have, of course, you're going to ask some questions right now, I hope so. But if you do have something you want to share, please do not hesitate to reach out to us. We are very happy to receive your messages. Thank you, everyone, for listening to our design conversation. I hope you guys enjoyed.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Elsie and Sagar, for a very poetic presentation. I would like to thank both studios, Be Polite and Studio Neba. And I would like to introduce our moderators for the day, my young colleagues Abhilasha Somana and Neha MP. Abhilasha is a young architect who studied at UVC Bangalore, and Neha is an architecture student from Belgaum. They will be engaging with the presenters in a conversation. We are very welcome to questions, audience questions. Kindly type them in. Thank you.
Firstly, I would like to thank Studio Neba and Be Polite for the wonderful presentation. Moreover, Studio Neba, your take on locally available materials and artisans to develop designs is truly inspiring. Akarsh, your approach towards Be Polite is a sensitive thought that has been translated into not only a useful product, but it is also sustainable and affordable. Now I would like to move on to the question and answer session. We would like to request the audience to post their questions in the chat box. My co-moderator Nia and I have a few questions of our own. I would like to start by asking Studio Neba, how is your studio achieving quality construction while using locally sourced materials in Nepal, considering that importing materials is the norm?
Yeah, so it's like Nepal is a very rich, or was very renowned for its architecture from very ancient times. So we still have a lot of people who are very skilled in terms of using natural materials. But with the modern tools and technology, maybe it was forgotten. So at the same time, we have to be realistic on which parts we use those elements. Like we just can't build something from like entirely old in something which needs a newer functionality. So here we're trying to explore on the skill sets that the local people have, and at the skill sets of what it used to be, and maybe we can revive them to some extent. So yeah, that would be it.
Thank you.
Hi, my question is to Akarsh.
Yeah.
So your ideas of products are really innovative. Are there any other products that you are currently working on inspiring and supporting the Sustainable Development Goals initiative? Also, are you collaborating with any designer or local authority for any upcoming ones?
Yes, specifically with regard to your first question, I think we're looking at also working on a pilot project for a push cart itself. So it makes it easier for the vendors to carry like the vegetables, because on an average, most vendors on a daily basis at least push about 100 kilos to 150 kilos, some even 200 kilos just by pushing it along. So we're trying to see if we can come up with a more a lightweight and a more electronic, like a e-mobility kind of a solution that would help the vendors move around a little more freely. And coming to the next question, I think we're also looking at, we're trying to work with a lot of smart city initiatives, because this is one project that can actually look at the entire inclusivity from a very resilient point of view. So inclusiveness purely because we're able to get the street vendor on a digital platform and to start using their smartphone. So smart cities initiative, yes, that's the next step for us, because over the last 3 years, we've shown that there is a very clear-cut need for it. And also we've done the pilot projects that are required to show that, this will indeed work. So yes, indeed, going forward, we're looking at different municipalities and also trying to collaborate with the smart city initiatives going ahead.
Thank you.
I also have another question for Studio Neba. I noticed that you have projects in various regions all around the globe. So how is it that you get in touch with the local artisans of that particular region?
Yeah, so for those reasons, most of them are in the very initial stage, and then some of them are in the later stage as well. But at the same time, we do have local architects which we work in that region. So and then so we are in a kind of constant touch with them. So they act as our third eye for scouting the material, for scouting the people, and so on. But at the same time, in most of the places like Indonesia, Bali, where we've stayed there for like 3.5 years, we do know some of the people who we can trust and we can rely upon. So it's all about the mutual trust. And nowadays with internet, it's like
We're all connected.
we're all connected.
Right. Thank you. This is another question to Mr. Akash.
Yep.
Being an NGO, getting funding for your products must not have been easy. How did you manage to get investors to buy your product?
So we started off with crowdfunding, and the beauty of crowdfunding is that you can really look at small amounts coming in that eventually fill a big pot. So so I collaborated with an NGO called Sauramandala Foundation, which is run by a friend of mine called Naga Karthik. And what we did was we just said, okay, let's break it down to really small components of the campaign, and we simply just shared the link, and that got picked up because the idea was so simple and everybody was able to relate to it, because it's a festival Diwali and you're gifting alike. So we just broke it down to that, to such a simple thought that it got picked up easily by the media. And in a matter of just 10 to 15 days, we were able to raise 3 lakh rupees. So which is from a crowdfunding campaign's perspective, like really good. So one, it's the timing, and you have to basically, if you have an idea, you have to sort of merge it well with the cultural values, because that's what a lot of people relate to. So that was one of the ways. And people started, it reached a certain point where we started getting excess funds and we weren't able to handle it. So we had to return the money to a couple of contributors, and we told them that, we'll take this money the next year. So that way it's pretty important to have a very simple and a very clear-cut idea that other people can, understand quite easily. So that's how we were able to sort of start off with this initiative. And today it's grown to over 350 street vendors across India. So we're looking forward to taking that number a little higher this year.
Thank you.
I had a couple of questions to Studio Neba. Some clients don't see eye to eye with architects on what is beautiful and what is functional. So, how do you balance function with aesthetic appeal as you work with the local?
Yeah, so we see this entire design process as a teamwork. For instance, we take the client not as a client, but as someone who also has input. So what kind of people they have them in a one single blueprint. And at the same time, there would be a reasons why they are hiring an expert. But at the same time, when as an artist or a kind of a designer, we have to let go of our ego and then be on the same page with them. So in a way, we're trying to give our opinion, our, but at the same time, kind of trying to listen on what they have to offer on the plate.
Yeah, we're creating spaces for people to stay there for either though their whole life, right? So it is very important that we are creating as a team for us.
Right.
I think that is the most important, that there create a functionality in terms of the flow, in terms of the durability of the items. It's also, we have to share our expertise, how in terms of maintenance as well.
Yeah, thank you. One more question. So, the amalgam of opposites like soft meets rough and heavy meets light, and integration of different materials is an innovative idea. What do you find challenging while doing so, and how do you deal with it?
Sorry, could you repeat that once more? The last one, I did not hear you well.
Yeah, so my question was the amalgam of opposites like soft meets rough and heavy meets light, and the integration of different materials is very innovative. What do you find challenging while doing so, and how do you deal with it?
Um, Actually, I don't find a challenge. I find more an opportunity. And while I am searching into fabrics reusing, I always feel, it's very important for me. What does it make you feel? Does it make you feel like comfortable? Does it make you feel um, beautiful as well? What are you wearing on your skin? What are you looking at as well? And what is the durability as well of the item? So in terms of that, I like to work with fabrics which are in high quality, raw, natural as much as possible. The only thing which I'm facing sometimes a difficulty is in searching in how can I make it more environmental friendly, because sometimes even though in my environmental friendly things are not that durable always. So I have to find a perfect balance in those worlds for me. And that is, that is important. I hope I answered your question well.
There is one question from Urvi. She asked, do you also aim to, this is to Studio Neba, do you also aim in reducing the carbon footprint and emission to zero? If there is there any material such as glass?
Is there? Okay. So
Is
so
there
like
any?
yeah, so we try to be like, so what is sustainable in a way, like sustainability or like a carbon footprint, it goes hand in hand. So for some of the projects where it's much more liberal and so on, we try to be like less carbon footprint. So for instance, we're working on this office building here, and the clients wants to be like as low kind of carbon footprint as we can. So we're trying to use not just only the local materials, but also like these advanced materials, which would, like reduce the CO2 emissions as well. But at the same time, we also have to think about like, is it financially sustainable as well? If the entire project is not financially sustainable, then the whole outcome would not be in the real life. So we try to So we also try to wait in if it's like, like architecturally like sustainable, of course, but at the same time, if it's like financially doable or not.
And also that is one of the reasons why we're using as much as local materials as possible, because that creates also less of a carbon footprint as
Right.
well.
There's another question by Kavindu. Firstly, I would like to thank both the studios for their presentations. My question is for Mr. Akarsh. I really admire the work you have done. It's very thoughtful. Have you thought about maybe engaging with university students in sort of competitions or programs to further promote this wonderful initiative? For example, designing different lights, etc.
Right. Yes. In fact, we've already done this initiative in almost 3 universities, two in Davanagere and also in Kolkata. So specifically, we used the students where we gamified the entire process of identifying street vendors. So we gave them half an hour. We created teams of 10 each, and we said just go out to different parts of the city, take a picture, and also geolocate them. So we were able to identify different street vendors and what their needs are, so that we could plan for the next initiative. And the second phase, what we did was we asked another group of students saying, okay, here are street vendors who require the lights. Then you can we taught them how to do a crowdfunding campaign and also how to tell a story, more importantly. And that would help them raise funds. And eventually what we did is we combined all of it together, and during a university, like a college fest, we gave this as an activity to several teams. But specifically coming to the aspect of designing the lights, yes, we do have that thought in mind, because we right now, I'll just quickly show you the product. What we've ensured is that, this is the battery pack, and we tried to reduce the amount of plastic in the product. So the only plastic that you see is just these end caps. And we've done away with plastic casing for the product. I mean, this was done consciously, because once the product gets disposed, we want to ensure that it has a certain end life cycle, and by making sure it's metal, at least it would go into some waste recycling stream. So this way, we want to see if we can make the entire process a little more sustainable in terms of the product, like the components of the products that we're putting together. And also we're trying to see if it can be easily dismantleable and replaceable, because once the product, like the battery life cycle is done, it should be easily replaceable. So instead of buying a new product, why can't we just repair it? So that's one of the things we're looking at. And also going down the line, we want to see if we can use certain bio-based products which are more sustainable and which are probably natural as well. So that's in the coming days, that's one of the things that we want to explore.
Thank you.
So there's a question from Urvi. Questions for Studio Neba. Do you also aim at reducing footprint and emission to zero if there is use of materials like glass?
I think we have answered that question.
I think we answered that question just now, but I see he has another question, right?
So do you also experiment with any other alternative futuristic materials other than concrete and locally available materials which are sustainable too?
Yeah, so regarding like futuristic material, like since in Nepal we are not very much exposed to all these technologies that you can find in Europe and like other side of the world. But at the moment, to be honest, we haven't used those materials, but kind of given a chance, we are in the process to use these kind of materials. And in the future, since I've worked with a rammed earth before and a kind of a bamboo as well, so in the future, we might have some of the projects where we try to introduce materials such as rammed earth and the kind of the bamboo, which are like, locally found and sourced. So I think it's for the future to see how much, to what extent we can push these materials, because it's less footprint, number one, and it's like locally sourced material as well.
Thank you. There's another question from an anonymous attendee to Studio Neba. One learns a lot through a process of constructing a piece of architecture. What works, what doesn't work, but is there some learnings you would like to share that a client helped you with?
I think we're always learning a lot. Every project has its constraints as well. Um, what does yeah, Sagar?
Yeah, so for, yeah, so
What did we learn?
so for instance, in some of the project, the clients are much more aware of how to run their kind of business. So for instance, if we are making a kind of office building, they know much more insights on how to run. If we are making a kind of restaurant, which we are doing few of them, they are much more aware on, how the function of the back of house should be with the main thing.
Yeah, we don't know that.
Yeah. So these are the things where we also, get them on board from the very first stage, so that like at the later, like it's not something that we would surprise them with like everything which they haven't thought or like they thought. So it's a risk in there. Like they might either love it or they might either not like it.
We extract as much information as possible, and on that way it gives us a learning curve in every project, because yeah, with that extraction we create, and we always learn in that.
Right.
Always.
Yes, absolutely. We're always learning.
Yeah.
Thank you for answering. So there's a question to Akarsh. The work you do is indeed very meaningful and essential. Do you see yourself moving into building housing prototypes that bring?
Neha, could you just repeat, please?
Yes. The work you do is indeed very meaningful and essential. Do you see yourself moving into building housing prototypes that bring together the essence of your work?
Yes, in fact, we are looking at how we can sort of explore options in the housing, especially for low-income groups in the LIG sector, because currently, even if you look at the government policies where they want to have this, there's a government scheme called the Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana, where they're looking at giving subsidies for people who want to, build a house. We're trying to see if we can take all these different policies, what is available in the market, and come up with a more socially inclusive and a more environment-friendly, low-cost housing in the future as well. But yes, that would take some more time, easily from 6 months to a year to get that project up and running. But that is something that we do have in mind, because currently we are doing a lot of work, especially with the bottom of the pyramid, and indeed housing would definitely be one of the spaces that we want to eventually start looking at, where we'd like to intervene and try to get some more positive transformation in people's lives.
Hi. Now that we are at the end of this session, I would like to thank our wonderful speakers, Studio Neba and Be Polite, as well as our moderators, Abhilasha Somana, who is an intern with PSLA, and Neha MP, a student from KLS College. I would like to thank the ClayWorks team for supporting us, and to the entire team of Design United that has helped bring this series together. This is our fourth installment in the series, and and we hope that you would join us for our next installment, which is going to be with Kolpa World from Nepal and Compartment S4 from India. We hope that you would follow us and design. We hope that you'll follow us, ClayWorks, as well as Studio Neba and hashtag Be Polite on Instagram. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you so much for joining.